everyone. We're so excited to be back. And joining us today is Rhonda Brewer from BCD Events and
Meetings and Events.
Thank you. I always forget.
That's
Meetings
okay.
and Events. You see the abbreviation so many times. And of course, Brandt is joining us because we're talking about two very important topics in events right now: mentorship, as well as sexual harassment, but the larger conversation of gender balance and really what does that look like right now. So Rhonda, do you want to start us off a little bit? I know we were talking earlier about how it's a two-way participation for mentorship rather than a one-way.
Yeah, thank you. One thing we started last year as part of our Women in Leadership and site was the fact that we really needed more mentoring. And that mentor programs we started with our young leader group, and what we really found is that it really shouldn't just be a one-way mentor. We really need to have two-way mentorship because, you know, I need to understand really that next generation and how we can bring them along with us. At the same time, we need to educate them and mentor them on our industry and how they can have a broader voice. So what we've really been able to do is create what we call advisors in action. So we kind of went through a couple of different, like I didn't want to just call it a mentor program because that's so boring, but like what's the next thing that we can really do? And we had it initially as leaders in action because we were both leaders. We're like, they're young leaders, you were the older leaders. Anyway, it's, you know, the more mature leaders. But then we really, in talking to them, we ended up with advisors in action because we're really both advising each other on how we can work better together throughout all of our age groups and how we can really just be better together.
I think you hit an important point there too, because, you know, at this point we're talking about young leaders versus more mature leaders, but it's not even just the millennials anymore. It's like the Gen Z, and I don't even know. There's so many other generations.
Five generations in the
The
workforce.
Snapchat generation.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's really like, so what is considered a young leader at this point in time? And when people are getting involved, what's the best way to start facilitating that?
And for us at site, it's you've got to have 5 years or less industry experience in order to become a young leader. So what we've really been able to do is engage with that young leader. And to start off, we just put a couple of questions on their registration survey and just said, would you be interested in a mentorship program? And we had an overwhelming response. We had to shut it down because we're like, oh my gosh, I don't even have enough mentors to be able to do this. So we had probably 30 plus young leaders that wanted to get involved in the mentorship program. And we then aligned them with, starting with our Women in Leadership, but then a lot of leaders that we had within site. So it wasn't just female mentors, we also had male mentors as well. And it wasn't necessarily that we did female to female or male to male. We really, you know, did it based on whether they were hotel to hotel or DMC to DMC or third party to third party or corporate client. But it was really, what do you want to learn more about? And let's connect you together. So I actually had somebody that worked on the gifting side, a young leader, and she wanted to learn more just about all of the different aspects of our industry. So I was able to connect her with a lot of other ladies that she could talk to about what they did, and she could learn a much broader understanding of our industry to see, one, how she could be better at her role, but also just, you know, what would be my next step if I, you know, wanted to progress from my current role. So it's been a really successful program for those that have been in it and those that have really participated on a regular basis.
I think you bring up an important point where it's talking about the gender balance, where it's not just we're segregating ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many times when we think about leadership and think about mentoring, it's immediately going to go into, well, these women leaders have to help that. I read this really terrible statistic that men are actually scared to have meetings with women, especially in the events industry, just because the lines between work and play here sometimes can be very blurred. And so, you know, thinking about the next portion of it, I think you said that you're doing a new study around gender balance. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
We are. So last year we did our first study on the challenges women face in our industry, and some of the results were pretty profound that they were appalling, quite honestly, about some of the sexual harassment and some of the things that continue in our industry. And so what we wanted to do this year is kind of do a take two. What are we going to do about the issues that we face? So it's kind of, we started adding and drilling into some of the questions that we had, but also, you know, what else can we do to improve some of the statistics that we had? At the same time, we really need to involve our male colleagues because we need to understand how they view it, because we're all in this together. So how can we be inclusive but understand each other's problems, and how do we then face it together and figure out how we can work through that?